What if I told you that the greatest battles of your life are not fought against the world outside, but against the storm inside your own mind? Think about it. Many of us have tried to fix our lives by reading the right books, watching motivational videos, setting goals, even forcing ourselves to think positive. And for a short while, it feels like something is changing. But then the old patterns come back. The motivation fades, the bad habits return, and we're left wondering, why can't I hold on to change? Why do I keep slipping back? The truth is hard to hear, but essential to understand. It is not life that breaks us. It is our own weak mindset that allows us to fall apart. One man loses his job and collapses, blaming the economy, his boss, or bad luck. Another man loses his job and uses it as fuel. He wakes up earlier, learns new skills, and rebuilds stronger than before. The same event, two completely different outcomes. The difference is not in the world. It is in the mind. That is why the wisdom of Stoicism, born over 2,000 years ago, is more relevant today than ever. In a noisy, chaotic age filled with distractions and excuses, Stoicism reminds us of something simple but powerful. You are the one in control. Not your feelings, not society, not your past, you. If you want to truly change your life, don't start with your bomb, your bank account, or your relationships. Start with your thoughts, because once you fix your mind, everything else begins to fall into place. But let me be clear, what I'm about to share with you isn't soft advice meant to make you feel good for a few minutes. These are not gentle affirmations to whisper before bed. What you are about to hear are brutal truths. They will challenge you. They will push against your ego. They will demand sacrifice. And if you're the kind of person who is tired of being stuck, tired of living on autopilot, tired of breaking down every time life doesn't go your way, then you are exactly where you need to be. In this journey, we will walk through 12 Stoic rules, principles that will give you the tools to master your emotions, your habits, and your decisions. These rules are drawn from the writings of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, but they will not be delivered as dry philosophy. You don't need a degree to understand them. We'll break them down into clear, modern language that speaks directly to the challenges you face every day. And here's my personal perspective. I've seen too many people, maybe even friends or colleagues, who spend their entire lives waiting for motivation, waiting for the right time, waiting for permission from the world to finally take control. But waiting has never changed anyone. The Stoics never waited. They acted. They embraced discomfort. They chose discipline over ease, clarity over noise, and action over endless thought. And that is what you must do if you want to rebuild your life. So before we dive into the first rule, I want to ask you directly, are you ready to stop blaming the world and start rebuilding yourself? Are you ready to stop being at the mercy of your emotions and instead master them? Are you ready to take back your mind and with it, your entire life? If your answer is yes, then stay with me, because the next few minutes may be the turning point you've been waiting for. Script. Rule 1, stop seeking approval. We all say we want freedom. We all claim to love ourselves. But here's the paradox. Most of us live as prisoners, chained not by iron, but by the opinions of other people. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own." Think about that for a moment. We claim to value our own lives, yet we hand over control of those lives to the judgment of strangers, colleagues, or even family members. I remember meeting a woman named Emily. She had dreamed of starting her own small company for years. She had the skills, the plan, and even the passion to make it happen. But she was terrified of being called reckless. Her friends told her it was too risky. Her parents told her to stay safe. And so year after year she delayed, waiting for the moment when everyone around her would nod their heads in approval. That moment never came. And so her dream remained on the shelf gathering dust. How many of us are living like Emily? We say we want growth, but when the people around us laugh or doubt us, we freeze. We say we want to be stronger, wiser, more independent. But we wait for the applause before we move forward. The truth is, if you wait for the world to clap for you, you'll be waiting your entire life. Because here's something no one tells you. Your growth makes other people uncomfortable. Your discipline exposes their laziness. Your courage highlights their fear. And so they mock, they doubt, they pull you back into the version of yourself that they understand. The Stoics understood this perfectly. A Stoic doesn't live for applause. A Stoic lives for virtue, for truth, for alignment with their own principles. Epictetus said that if you want to improve, you must be willing to look foolish. And he was right, because growth has always looked strange to those who choose comfort. The runner training at 5 a.m. looks crazy to the person hitting snooze. The entrepreneur investing in a risky idea looks reckless to the one clinging to a paycheck. The man who chooses silence over gossip looks arrogant to those addicted to noise. So the question is this: do you want to stay small so that others feel comfortable? Or do you want to rise, even if it means standing alone? I'll tell you from my own perspective. Some of the most important choices of my life were the ones that people laughed at. When I stopped trying to be liked, I started to become free. When I stopped begging for approval, I started to build real confidence. Because freedom is not found in doing whatever you want. Freedom is found in no longer needing permission to live your truth. Yes, it hurts to be misunderstood. Yes, it stings to be mocked. But what's the alternative? To keep living a life that isn't yours? To silence your dreams so that no one rolls their eyes? That's not peace. That's slow death. Marcus Aurelius never asked the crowd what kind of man he should be. He became the man through action, through principle, through discipline. And so must we. So if you want to live a Stoic life, start here. Stop seeking approval. Stop waiting for someone else to believe in you before you move forward. Decide today that your worth is not measured by applause, but by integrity. Decide that your choices will be guided by truth, not popularity. And the next time you hear the doubts, the criticism, the laughter, remind yourself you don't need their permission. You never did. Script. Rule 2. Embrace discomfort as your teacher. Most people spend their lives running away from discomfort. The moment things get hard, they look for a distraction. When the room feels quiet, they turn on the TV. When they feel anxious, they reach for food or scroll through their phone. When life stings with rejection, they hide behind excuses. But here is the truth that Stoicism teaches us. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is your greatest teacher. Epictetus once said, "Don't hope that events will turn out the way you want. Welcome events in whichever way they happen. This is the path to peace." Think about that. Peace is not found in controlling everything that happens around you. Peace is found when you learn to accept every challenge as training for your soul. Imagine Michael, a man who has decided to start running every morning. One day the rain is pouring, The wind is cold, and every excuse whispers in his ear to stay in bed. But instead of giving in, he ties his shoes, steps outside, and runs through the storm. To him, the rain is no longer an obstacle. It's a weight added to his training. It's not punishment, it's preparation. That's the Stoic way. Life will never hand you perfect conditions. There will always be storms. There will always be setbacks, rejections, and pain. If you spend your energy avoiding them, you will remain weak. You will remain fragile. But when you decide to face them, to lean into the discomfort, something incredible happens. You become unshakable. You begin to see pain not as a curse, but as a forge where character is built. I'll give you another example. A friend of mine, Sarah, once told me she hated public speaking. Her hands would shake, her voice would crack, and she would avoid every opportunity to stand in front of a crowd. But one day she chose to see her fear differently. Instead of running, she volunteered to speak at a local event. She stumbled, she sweat, but she didn't quit. And each time she faced that discomfort, she grew stronger, until one day the stage no longer terrified her. The same fear that once imprisoned her became the teacher that set her free. The Stoics didn't seek comfort. They understood that an easy life produces weak minds. Marcus Aurelius faced war, plague, and betrayal, yet he reminded himself daily to endure what is endurable and to stop complaining. That was not coldness. It was clarity. Because every time you embrace discomfort, you expand the limits of what you can endure. And the more you can endure, the freer you become. Let me give you my perspective. In my own life, the moments that shaped me most were never the comfortable ones. It wasn't when everything went my way. It was when I was tested, when I failed, when I was rejected, when I felt pain I thought I couldn't survive. Looking back, I see those moments not as obstacles, but as the very foundation of my strength. Without them, I would have remained soft. Without them, I would never have grown. So ask yourself, what discomfort have you been avoiding? What pain do you keep running from? What would happen if, instead of resisting it, you welcomed it? What if you saw every difficult moment as a gift, a teacher shaping you into someone stronger than you were yesterday? The next time you feel discomfort, remember this. It's not here to break you. It's here to train you. The rain is your coach. The rejection is your mentor. The hardship is your classroom. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the path to peace. And if you can stop running from it, if you can face it head on with courage, you will find a strength within yourself that no storm can ever destroy. Script. Rule 3, do the hard things, especially when you don't feel like it. Most people know exactly what they need to do to change their lives. Wake up earlier, exercise consistently, cut out toxic habits, study harder, speak up when it matters, say no when it's necessary. None of these things are mysteries. We already know them. Yet here's the problem. We don't do them. Why? Because they're hard, because they're uncomfortable, because our emotions scream louder than our discipline. Epictetus gave us a powerful reminder. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. He was telling us that growth will never look easy. It will never feel comfortable. And the people who expect comfort will never transform. Take Sarah, for example. She knew learning another language would open the door to promotions and opportunities in her company. She had the resources, the course, even colleagues willing to help. But every time she thought about starting, her mind produced excuses. I don't have the time. I'll start next month. I'll wait until work slows down. Months turned into years and nothing changed. Sarah's story isn't unique. It's the same trap many of us fall into, the trap of waiting to feel ready. But here's the reality: you will never feel ready. Your emotions will always find reasons to resist. That's why Stoicism teaches us not to wait for inspiration, but to rely on discipline. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is a fire that doesn't go out. Motivation comes and goes depending on your mood. Discipline shows up no matter how you feel. And every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are forging a stronger version of yourself. Think of it this way: when you drag yourself to the gym after a long day, that's not just a workout. That's training your mind to act without permission from your feelings. When you have a tough conversation you'd rather avoid, that's not just communication. That's building courage. When you turn down another hour of mindless scrolling to focus on your craft, that's not just productivity. That's integrity. Each of these small, difficult choices builds a kind of armor, and with every layer, you become harder to break. Seneca once said that we suffer more in ambition than in reality. How many battles have you already lost in your head before you even tried? How many goals have you delayed, not because they were impossible, but because they were uncomfortable? The pain of action is temporary, but the pain of regret lingers for a lifetime. That's why you must choose your suffering wisely: the discomfort of discipline today, or the agony of regret tomorrow. I'll share something personal. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in my own life came at the exact moments I didn't feel like showing up. There were days I wanted to quit, days I wanted to rest, days I thought no one would notice if I stopped. But those were the exact days that shaped me most. Because each time I pushed through, I sent a message to myself. I don't need perfect conditions to act. I don't need permission from my emotions to move forward. I act because it's who I am becoming. So let me ask you, what is the hard thing you've been avoiding? What is the difficult step you know you need to take, but you're waiting for the right moment? If you're waiting for the day you feel motivated, you will wait forever. The Stoics didn't wait. They embraced resistance as the forge of character. And if you want to build a stronger, more resilient life, you must do the same. The truth is simple. Strength is born in discomfort. Growth is found in discipline. And the most powerful version of you is not built in moments of inspiration, but in the moments when you act despite resistance. So stop waiting. Stop making excuses. Do the hard thing today, especially when you don't feel like it. Script. Rule 4, the power of silence. We live in a world where everyone wants to be heard, but very few want to listen. Social media rewards the loudest voice, not the wisest. People argue endlessly online, trying to prove their point to strangers they will never meet. In meetings, in families, in friendships, so much energy is wasted in explaining, defending, justifying. Yet the Stoics understood something most of us forget. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strength. Epictetus wrote, "Let silence be your general rule, or say only what is necessary and in few words." Let me share a story. John worked in a busy office. One morning during a heated meeting, a colleague openly attacked him, accusing him of being careless with a project. Everyone expected John to snap back, to defend himself, but instead, he chose silence. He didn't take the bait. He let the noise pass. Then, over the next few days, he poured his energy into his work, delivering results that spoke louder than any argument could. By the time the project was completed, it was undeniable. His silence had protected his focus, while his actions proved his strength. That is the essence of Stoicism. When you remain silent, you conserve your energy. You avoid spilling your emotions into arguments that change nothing. You protect your dignity. And perhaps most importantly, you keep control of yourself. Because every time you react impulsively, every time you rush to defend your ego, you give away power. But when you stay calm, measured, and quiet, people cannot read you, they cannot manipulate you, and they cannot shake you. Think about your own life. How often have you said something in anger only to regret it moments later? How many times have you explained yourself to someone who never cared to understand? Silence spares you from these traps. It creates space for clarity. It teaches patience. It forces you to listen, not just to others, but to yourself. And when you listen more, you see more, you notice what others miss, you gain perspective that the loud never do. I'll tell you this from personal experience. Some of the most powerful moments of my life came not from what I said, but from what I chose not to say. Walking away from pointless arguments, refusing to answer an insult, letting my actions speak instead of my mouth. Those moments built more respect than any clever comeback ever could, because respect is not earned by shouting louder. It is earned by demonstrating control, even when provoked. Now, don't mistake silence for passivity. Stoic silence is not about being weak or avoiding truth. It is about using your words with precision. It is about knowing when to speak and when to remain quiet. It is about making your voice so deliberate that when you finally do speak, people listen because they know your words carry weight. So here is the challenge, the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. The next time you feel the urge to prove yourself, ask, will my words add value or will silence serve me better? The more you practice this, the stronger you become. While others waste their strength on noise, you preserve yours for action, and actions, in the end, will always be louder than words. Remember this, silence is not emptiness, it is discipline, it is clarity, it is power. Let your silence unsettle the insecure. Let your results silence the doubters. And let your calm presence remind the world that true strength does not need to shout. Script. Rule 5. Stop negotiating with weakness. One of the most dangerous conversations you will ever have is not with another person, but with yourself. It's that inner dialogue that whispers, just one more time won't hurt. Just 5 more minutes of sleep. Just one last drink. Just one last excuse. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, build up your life action by action, and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible. Every action counts. Every choice builds you or breaks you. And yet, most of us keep negotiating with weakness, giving it small victories that eventually define who we are. Think of David. He promised himself he would stop drinking beer during the week. At first, he was serious, but then one night, after a long day, he told himself, just one more won't matter. The next week, it was 2. Soon the promise he made to himself was nothing more than a memory. That's how weakness works. It never demands you surrender all at once. It just asks for one more time. And when you agree often enough, weakness becomes your identity. Here's the truth. Every time you give in to that inner negotiation, You lose a battle with yourself. And each battle makes the war harder to win. People often think strength is buried somewhere deep, waiting to be uncovered. But the Stoics remind us that strength is built, choice, by refusing to surrender when it's tempting to quit. You can't grow into the strongest version of yourself if you keep folding the moment life gets hard or the moment comfort calls your name. I've experienced this in my own life. There were times I told myself, I'll start tomorrow, I'll try again next week, I'll let it slide just this once. But every time I said those words, I wasn't just delaying action. I was training myself to lose. And here's the painful part. Weakness never stops asking. It's at your bedside when the alarm goes off, telling you to hit snooze. It's in your mind when you feel anxious, telling you to distract yourself instead of sitting with the discomfort. It's with you when you're lonely, telling you to go back to the toxic relationship you swore you'd leave. The Stoics didn't make deals with weakness. They didn't look for comfort. They trained for adversity because they knew that every temptation resisted, every hardship endured, was a victory for the soul. So ask yourself, when your alarm rings, do you rise like a warrior or do you let your emotions press snooze? When you face fear, do you confront it or do you hide? When your mind says just one more time, do you obey or do you hold the line? I'll tell you something you already know deep down. You will never fix your life until you kill the version of yourself that keeps making excuses. There is no peace without discipline. There is no greatness without sacrifice. Every time you give in, you betray your future self. But every time you stand firm, you earn your own respect. So the next time weakness comes knocking, don't argue with it. Don't explain it away. Don't reason with it. You shut it down. You get up. You walk forward. You choose strength over comfort. Because warriors are not built in comfort. They are built action by action, refusal by refusal, victory by victory. Remember this, the healing begins the moment you stop negotiating with weakness. Decide now that you are done making deals with the part of you that keeps you small, because strength is not found in someday. Strength is found in the choices you make today. Script. Rule 6. Discipline is greater than motivation. Most people are waiting for motivation. They wait for the perfect song, the perfect speech, the perfect wave of energy to finally get started. But here's the problem. Motivation is a mood, not a method. It's like a spark, bright for a moment, but gone in seconds. Discipline, on the other hand, is a fire you build, brick by brick, habit by habit. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." True freedom is not doing whatever you feel like. True freedom is the ability to choose what you must do, even when you don't feel like it. Amanda understood this. She wanted to write a novel, something she had dreamed of since she was a teenager. At first, she waited for inspiration. Some days she felt creative. Other days, she didn't. Weeks passed, then months, and the pages remained empty. Finally, she made a different choice. Every morning at 6 a.m., no matter how tired, no matter how uninspired, she sat down and wrote. Some days the words flowed, some days they didn't, but she showed up, day after day, week after week, until eventually she had a manuscript in her hands. Amanda didn't rely on motivation. She built her novel with discipline. That's the difference. Motivation whispers, do it when you feel ready. Discipline says, do it anyway. Motivation fades when life gets tough. Discipline carries you through the storm. And in the end, it is discipline, not motivation, that builds a life you want. Think about it. How many times have you felt motivated to start something, maybe a new diet, a new routine, a new habit, only to quit the moment the excitement wore off? That's because excitement cannot carry you to the finish line. Only discipline can. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius woke each morning as emperor of Rome with the weight of wars, betrayals, and plagues on his shoulders. Do you think he always felt motivated? Of course not. But he did his duty anyway because discipline mattered more than feelings. Feelings are temporary. Discipline builds eternity. From my own experience, I can tell you this. The times I grew most were not when I felt inspired, but when I acted without it. Waking up early to work when every part of me wanted more sleep. Finishing tasks on days when energy was gone. Pushing forward not because I wanted to, but because I said I would. And here's the lesson. You don't build trust in yourself when you act only in moments of motivation. You build it when you act consistently, even when you don't want to. So ask yourself, do you really want freedom, or are you still a slave to your moods? Freedom is not doing whatever you feel like. Freedom is choosing what is right, regardless of how you feel. And once you learn to master that, you'll discover a power that cannot be shaken by laziness, distraction, or doubt. Motivation may inspire you to begin, but only discipline will take you to the end. Stop waiting for the right mood. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Build routines, build habits, build discipline, because discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. And remember, no man is truly free until he is the master of himself. Script. Rule 7, control your reactions or be controlled by them. Most people believe that life itself makes them angry, frustrated, or miserable. But the Stoics taught something radically different. Epictetus said, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. Think about that. It's not the insult, the traffic jam, the failure, or the rude coworker that ruins your peace. It's how you interpret those moments and how you choose to react. Take James, for example. He was walking downtown when a stranger shouted something insulting at him. For a split second, his blood boiled. He wanted to snap back, to prove himself, but then he remembered. Why should he hand over his peace to a stranger? So he smiled, kept walking, and the power of that insult dissolved instantly. The stranger walked away angry, but James walked away free. That is the Stoic way. Now contrast that with someone who reacts emotionally every time they are provoked. A single comment online ruins their whole day. A rude driver makes them explode. A disappointing outcome throws them into weeks of bitterness. These people are like puppets on a string. Anyone who knows which button to push can control them. And the sad truth is this: if you cannot control your reactions, you are giving away your freedom. I'll ask you directly, how many times have you lost your peace because of something small? A careless remark, a late delivery, a plan that didn't go your way. And yet, how often did the other person move on while you carried the weight for hours, even days? That's the prison of emotional slavery. But the Stoic path offers another way. The first step is awareness. When you feel triggered, pause. Don't rush to respond. Ask yourself, what part of this is really under my control? If the answer is nothing external, then the only battlefield that matters is internal. The second step is clarity. Separate fact from story. She said something rude. That's a fact. I'm worthless. That's a story you told yourself. Learn to see clearly, and you will suffer less. The third step is choice. Choose calm power over panic. Choose dignity over drama. Because your response is always your responsibility, no matter how unfair life seems. I've learned this the hard way in my own life. There were times when I reacted with anger, only to regret it later. Times when I let small inconveniences ruin entire days. But over time, I discovered something powerful. Every moment I resisted the urge to explode. Every moment I chose silence over reaction. I grew stronger, and the more I practiced, the more unshakable I became. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The man or woman who lives by this truth becomes dangerous in the best way, not because they harm others, but because they cannot be controlled. They cannot be baited. They cannot be broken by petty words or temporary setbacks. So here is the challenge. The next time someone insults you, what will you do? The next time life tests your patience, will you snap or will you hold your center? Will you keep handing your piece over like it's worthless? Or will you guard it like the treasure it truly is? Remember this, you cannot control everything that happens, but you can always control your reaction. And the person who masters their reactions masters their life. Script, Rule 8. Take action, don't just think. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." These words cut through all excuses, all theories, all endless debates. Because at the end of the day, it is not what we say or what we think that defines us. It is what we do. Linda had dreamed of becoming a writer. She read blogs about writing, watched videos on how to structure a novel, bought notebooks, even attended workshops. For 5 years, she absorbed information, but she never wrote a single page. Her mind was full of knowledge, but her life showed no results. And that is the trap so many of us fall into. We think about the life we want. We imagine it. We even talk about it, but we don't live it. Stoicism demands more. Stoicism reminds us that philosophy is not decoration. It is not something to discuss at dinner parties or post about on social media. It is a way of life. A Stoic doesn't just talk about self-control. He practices it when no one is watching. A Stoic doesn't just praise discipline. She builds it into her daily routine. A Stoic doesn't just imagine courage. He faces his fears in the real world. So I ask you, how many of your dreams are still only ideas? How many of your goals live only in your head, waiting for the right time? You say you want to get in shape, but do you train your body? You say you want to learn, but do you study with focus? You say you want to live with purpose, but do your actions match your words? This is where self-respect is born, not in the promises you make, but in the actions you take. I've seen this in my own life. There were seasons when I consumed so much information, books, courses, advice, yet my life barely changed. It wasn't until I acted, until I moved, until I embodied what I claimed to value that transformation began. Because wisdom that stays in the mind is wasted potential. But wisdom applied through action becomes power. The Stoics lived this truth daily. They didn't waste energy dreaming about the perfect conditions. They acted within the conditions they had. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations while leading an empire through wars and plagues. He didn't have luxury or peace, yet he chose action over endless thought. And that is why his words still guide us centuries later. Here is the challenge. Stop waiting for the right mood, the right season, the right opportunity. The right time is now. Stop performing and start becoming. Stop talking about your values and live them. Stop dreaming about who you could be and start proving it through action. Because at the end of your life, you will not be measured by the ideas you carried, but by the choices you made. You will not be remembered for what you planned, but for what you did. So if you value integrity, live with integrity. If you value strength, train yourself in strength. If you value courage, act with courage. Remember this, every day you wait, you shrink. Every day you act, you grow. Don't waste another year living only in your thoughts. Take the first step, however small, and then take another. Because respect for yourself and respect from others comes only when your actions align with your values. That is the Stoic way. Script. Rule 9. Master your focus. Seneca once said, "If you are everywhere, you are nowhere." These words strike even harder in today's world, where our attention is constantly under attack. Notifications, endless scrolling, breaking news, gossip, emails, texts. The world is screaming for your focus. And if you give it away freely, you will never build the life you want. Because here is the truth. Your focus is your most valuable currency. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. And where your energy flows, your future grows. Take Robert, for example. He was a hard-working professional, juggling multiple projects, but every hour he checked his phone at least 15 times. A text here, a notification there, a quick glance at social media. He thought he was multitasking, but at the end of the day, nothing was finished with excellence. He was busy all the time, but never effective. His attention was scattered, and as a result, his potential was wasted. This is not just Robert's problem. It is the modern condition. We've mistaken activity for productivity. We think being busy is the same as being effective, but the Stoics would disagree. They knew that clarity and focus were essential. Marcus Aurelius wrote about doing each task as if it were the last of his life, with seriousness and full presence. That is what focus looks like. So ask yourself, how often are you truly present in what you're doing? When you sit down to work, are you all in, or are you halfway scrolling, halfway distracted, halfway absent? When you're with loved ones, are you really with them, or is your mind already somewhere else? If you are everywhere, you are indeed nowhere. The Stoic path demands that we cut through the noise. It requires us to protect our focus like a warrior protects his sword. Because without focus, even the most talented person will waste their gifts. But with focus, even ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things. Think about it. Every masterpiece, every invention, every empire was built not by scattered minds, but by focused ones. I've learned this lesson in my own life. There were times when I was stretched too thin, saying yes to everything, trying to be everywhere at once, and I ended up exhausted, achieving little that truly mattered. But the seasons where I narrowed my focus, where I cut out the noise, where I devoted myself fully to the few things that mattered most, those were the seasons when I grew, when I built, when I moved forward. Focus doesn't just shape your productivity, it shapes your destiny. Here's how you start. First, cut the meaningless noise. Turn off the unnecessary notifications. Don't let your phone control you. Use it as a tool, not a leash. Second, create space for deep work. Even 60 minutes a day of undistracted focus can change your life. Third, practice presence. Train yourself to be fully in the moment, whether you are reading, writing, exercising, or speaking with someone you love. Because when you master your focus, you become dangerous in the best way. Dangerous not to others, but to your own limitations. Dangerous to the distractions that once held you hostage. Dangerous to the mediocrity that thrives on divided attention. So remember Seneca's words, if you are everywhere, you are nowhere. Protect your focus, guard it fiercely, direct it toward what truly matters. Because the person who masters their focus can build anything, overcome anything, and become unstoppable. Script. Rule 10. Own your mistakes without excuses. Seneca once wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." These words remind us that mistakes are not the end of us. They are the raw material that shapes us. Yet most people spend their entire lives running from their mistakes, covering them with excuses, blaming others, or pretending they never happened. And in doing so, they chain themselves to the very failures they're trying to escape. Take Jessica, for example. For years, she poured everything into her career. Meetings, deadlines, projects. Those became her world. But in the process, she neglected her young son. She missed birthdays, school events, and quiet evenings that could never be replaced. For a long time, she told herself, "I'm doing this for him. I'm building a better future." But deep down, she knew the truth. She had abandoned the present. Finally, one day, she stopped making excuses. She admitted to herself and to her son that she had failed him. She apologized, she made changes, and she began the long, difficult process of repairing that bond. Her honesty did not erase the past, but it created a path forward. That is the power of owning your mistakes. The Stoics believe that mistakes are inevitable, but denial is optional. To pretend you have done no wrong, to constantly justify your failures. That is weakness disguised as strength. True strength is saying, yes, I failed, but I will rise and I will not repeat it. Ownership sets you free. Excuses keep you trapped. Think about your own life. How many times have you blamed someone else for your unhappiness? How many times have you avoided the mirror because you were afraid to face your part in the problem? The truth is, the people who grow are the ones who accept responsibility. The ones who stay stuck are the ones who keep pointing fingers. When you take ownership, you stop being a victim of the past and start becoming the author of your future. I'll share something personal. Some of the hardest lessons I've learned came from my own failures. Promises I didn't keep, people I let down, standards I betrayed. For a long time, I wanted to rewrite those stories in my head, to soften them, to make myself feel better. But the moment I stood in the fire of my own truth and said, "This was me and I own it," that was the moment I began to change. Shame keeps you small, but honesty makes you strong. The Stoic way is not about appearing perfect. It is about becoming real. It is about being willing to face the pain of your past without flinching and then using that pain as fuel to grow. Your scars are not signs of weakness. They are evidence that you lived, you struggled, you learned. So why hide them? Why pretend? Here's the challenge. The next time you make a mistake, don't run, don't blame, don't cover it up. Stand tall and admit it, then decide what you will do differently. Every failure carries within it a lesson, but only for those brave enough to claim it. Remember this, you cannot polish a gem without friction, and you cannot become who you were meant to be without trials. So own your mistakes, rise from them, and let your courage to face the truth become the foundation of your strength. Script. Rule 11. Stay calm in the face of praise and criticism. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Few truths are more powerful in a world where praise and criticism constantly pull us in different directions. Because if your peace depends on what others say about you, you will never be free. Consider Daniel. After winning a massive contract at his firm, everyone applauded him. His inbox was filled with congratulations. His co-workers praised him, and his boss treated him like a rising star. But Daniel didn't let it inflate his ego. He accepted the recognition with gratitude, then returned to work with the same steady focus as before. Weeks later, when one of his proposals was harshly criticized, he didn't collapse under the weight of their disapproval. He listened, took what was useful, and moved on. Praise did not intoxicate him, and criticism did not crush him. That is the essence of Stoic balance. Most of us, however, live like emotional pendulums, swinging wildly between the high of being admired and the low of being rejected. One compliment lifts our mood for hours, while one harsh word ruins our entire day. But the Stoics remind us, both praise and criticism are external. They are opinions, not truths. They are echoes of other people's minds, not reflections of your worth. The only thing that is truly yours is your own judgment, your own character, your own mind. Think about it. How many times have you chased approval, hoping that someone's praise would validate you? And how many times have you shrunk under criticism, forgetting your own values because someone else disapproved? If your sense of self rises and falls with the applause of others, then you don't own your life, they do. From my own experience, I can tell you this: some of the most dangerous moments are not when you are criticized, but when you are praised. Because praise feeds the ego, and the ego always wants more. It whispers, "Look at me, look how great I am." And if you're not careful, you start living for the applause instead of for the truth. But the Stoic path is different. It says, accept praise, but don't be owned by it. Accept criticism, but don't be destroyed by it. Stand in the middle, steady and unmoved, grounded in who you are. Here is the challenge. The next time someone praises you, accept it with humility, but remind yourself that it doesn't define you. The next time someone criticizes you, listen for the lesson if one exists, but don't let it poison your peace. Because neither applause nor rejection determines your value. Only you do. The Stoics didn't seek to be loved or feared. They sought to live in alignment with virtue, with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. If you stay true to those, then what others say about you is just noise. And when you stop living for praise and stop running from criticism, you discover a new kind of freedom, the freedom of being unshakable. So remember Marcus Aurelius's words, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Don't let praise make you arrogant. Don't let criticism make you weak. Let your mind remain steady, your heart remain calm, and your life remain guided by principles, not opinions. That is where real strength lives. Script Rule 12. Accept death to live fully. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Those words are a reminder that life is not as brief as we think. It is simply too often squandered on distractions, regrets, and things that do not matter. And nowhere does this truth strike harder than when death reminds us of its presence. Take Olivia's story. She loved her mother deeply, but she was always busy. There was always another meeting, another email, another project she told herself was urgent. Her mother would ask her to travel together, to take just a few days to explore new places, but Olivia kept postponing, saying to her, maybe next month, maybe next year. She thought there would always be more time. But time ran out. Her mother passed away unexpectedly, and Olivia was left with the heavy weight of regret. She didn't regret her work, her meetings, or her deadlines. She regretted the simple, irreplaceable moments she had lost forever. This is the essence of memento mori. Remember that you must die. To many, that phrase sounds morbid, even dark. But to the Stoics, it was not about despair. It was about awakening. Because the moment you realize that life is fragile and temporary, you also realize how precious today really is. When you remember death, you learn how to live. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you said, "I'll do it tomorrow, I'll call them later, I'll chase that dream someday"? And how many of those tomorrows have silently slipped away? The Stoics would tell us, tomorrow is not guaranteed. The only time you truly own is this moment, right now. From my own perspective, I've found that remembering mortality brings clarity. It cuts through the noise. Suddenly, the petty arguments don't seem worth it. The endless chasing of status or approval feels hollow. And what matters most, love, presence, kindness, courage, rises to the surface. When you accept death, you no longer waste life. You begin to live deliberately, aware that every moment is a gift on loan, not a possession. Olivia's regret is a mirror for all of us. Who in your life have you postponed calling? What dream have you shelved for a later day that may never come? If you knew you had only 1 year left, or even 1 week, what would you change right now? Those are not questions meant to frighten you, but to free you, because awareness of death is not about losing hope. It is about gaining urgency. The Stoics were not obsessed with death. They were obsessed with life, with making it count. By keeping death in view, they sharpened their focus on what is truly meaningful. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he could be gone tomorrow, and in doing so, he lived with a strength and clarity that still inspire us 2,000 years later. So let Seneca's words echo in your heart. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Do not waste yours. Don't wait for someday to begin living fully. Say the words you need to say. Take the trip. Forgive the person. Pursue the dream. Be present with the people you love. Because the truth is simple. Those who remember death are the ones who finally learn how to live. The 12 Stoic rules we have explored are not abstract theories or nice words to think about once and then forget. They are disciplines, unyielding, demanding disciplines that call you to take responsibility for your mind, your actions, and your life. The Stoics understood that freedom does not come from the world bending to your will. It comes from you mastering yourself. And that is the challenge before all of us. When you begin to practice these principles, something shifts. You no longer feel like a victim of your emotions, dragged into anger, jealousy, or fear whenever circumstances change. You no longer live in chains, pulled by the opinions of strangers, swayed by the trends of society, or blinded by endless desires. Instead, you become grounded, centered, unshakable. You begin to walk through life with a quiet dignity that cannot be taken away. Of course, the Stoic path is not easy. It never was. Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, they all faced hardship, betrayal, loss, and the certainty of death. And yet, through discipline, they found strength where others broke, clarity where others panicked, and peace where others despaired. This is why their voices still echo through history. They remind us that real freedom is not comfort. It is not luxury. It is not approval. Real freedom is self-mastery. It is the ability to remain calm in the storm, to hold fast to your values when the world tempts you to abandon them, and to live with honor even when no one is watching. The reward of this discipline is profound. With each step you take, you gain self-respect, the kind that cannot be faked, the kind that cannot be bought. You gain clarity, the ability to see through the illusions that trap so many, and you gain a rare kind of freedom, not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to rise above what you don't need. That is the Stoic promise, a life that may not be easier, but is undeniably stronger, clearer, and more meaningful. So here is my final invitation to you. Do not try to adopt all 12 rules at once. That is too heavy. And philosophy is not a sprint. It is a lifelong discipline. Instead, choose just one rule, one principle that speaks to you right now. Begin practicing it today. Repeat it tomorrow. Let it become part of you, and then move on to the next. In time, these rules will stop feeling like lessons from ancient philosophers and start becoming your way of life. Remember this truth. When you train your mind, you transform your life. The Stoics knew this, and now you do too. The question is, will you act on it? If this message has resonated with you, I encourage you to take a moment, pick your rule, and begin. And if you found value here, I invite you to support this journey. Like this video, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe so you won't miss the daily insights that can reshape your perspective. Most importantly, leave a comment below. Tell me which Stoic rule you are choosing to start with today. Because when you declare it, you take the first step toward living it. Your mind is your kingdom. Rule it wisely and you will discover the freedom, the strength, and the peace that no one can take away.